Aaron's Adventures, take 1,158. We're never going to get going at this rate. Good on you, Clapper. This is it. This is the big one. Behind me is the last bit of tarmac that we're going to see from here to the Airbird Observatory and back again through to Esperance. Fingers crossed, as long as everything works out and weather's in our favour. I'm really excited. Yeah, still apprehensive about this whole trip. I'm a little bit late in going, so it really depends on the weather, and I've only got 2 spare tyres, so we'll see how we go in that department as well. But we're going to see some fantastic things. I've actually got a list of it. I made a list because I always forget. We're going to see caves, the cliffs, historical sites. We're going to discover artifacts. We're going to try fishing down off the cliffs with no bait. Obviously, I can show you all the camping techniques. The 4-wheel drive action is going to be, I'm by myself, so it'll be to a basic minimal, but at least there'll be some tips if I ever stuff up. I'll show you myself stuffing up. That'll be good. There'll be mountains. One I need to conquer that I have been trying to conquer for years, and fingers crossed we get there. It's always been my nemesis, is Mount Dean, so I'm going to try and go for that. We have Campfire Story series. We've got a special guest star. We've got some ornithology action. That's a bit of a tongue twister, isn't it? Ornithology. It's just all over the place out there. So if you love the birds, then you're going to enjoy this trip. We're going to have some killer sunsets, I'm hoping, but usually we do. Even more bush tucker, and on the list goes that who knows what we're going to see. As I said, it's the start. No more tarmac after this, which I'm kind of excited about. Had enough of tarmac. Let's get going. Who knows what we're going to see? Now that is an understatement, because at that point I really didn't know. This is going to be a fantastic journey, and thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be very interesting. That this entire journey, in its entirety, is what I mean, from point to point, has never been done before. Sure, every section of track has been transversed, no doubt, but from point to point, I doubt ever. It is the historical track that the sheep used to be transversed, and again sometimes cattle, would have been taken into the township of Norseman to feed the people more than 100 odd years ago. We've got, of course, today you've got the air highway, all tarmacked and all finished and done. But back then, this is the route that one would have taken. What you would be seeing either side of this track at the moment is, well, it's more of a road. It's quite smooth, transversable by any vehicle. So if you're going around Australia, do take the time to veer off from the tarmac from a change and come and drive on it. Like, even if you've got a caravan, not a problem. You don't need a 4-wheel drive. The council does maintain this bit of road, and it is certainly worth your while. There are plaques along the way that illustrate what it was like. Like I was just saying, either side of this road is, you would have seen scattered tents made up of just the local bits of timber, just chopped off with an axe and just made up into a makeshift tent. A canvas thrown over the top, and that's what people lived in as they dug the mine shafts, the incline mines, decline mines, your straight down vertical shafts, whatever, alluvial gold, whatever people had to do, they dug in there and they got as much gold as they could, and that's pretty much how life was. Water was practically gold itself. It had been very scarce at the time. But along this journey, you will be heading towards what would be the original Norseman township. What we just left behind us on the tarmac is not the actual original township, where the horse Norseman, that's what it was named after, actually dug up the rock with its foot. This is what happened. The horse, that means a horse is thirsty. When a horse starts digging with one of its feet, like just needlessly digging, it wants water. And it dug up a big chunk of gold, and that horse's name was Norseman, and that's how the township got its name. As I said, you will end up there at site number 10, but we're going to veer off at number 8. But do take the time to come down this track. If you are travelling around Australia and you've come this far, do it. But we're going to turn east from here on the old telegraph line, also known as the Iron Line. It's going to be a great trip. Thank you for joining. You're going to love this. From here we make our first turn off. The actual heritage trail, the old coach road, does continue on south. I think this is point number 8. If you want to do it, you're going to stay the day in Norseman. I'd make a day of it, get a packed lunch. Most, I said, any vehicle in the dry weather will drive down here. You don't need a 4-wheel drive. There's some great sights to see along the way. If you've got small children, keep an eye on them. There are open pits, there are dangerous areas. They have fenced off, like, generally most of it, but just common sense, you're fine. But from here, we don't continue on that trail. From here we head east, and this is the old telegraph line track. It's not the old one. We're actually going to see the original one from the that was originally established in 1877. But this is the one that they replaced it with. The two did run in conjunction initially for a while, but the other one ended in 1927. I think was the last transmission ever done at the old one. But this one, by that stage, was already well and truly up and running. And they even had more lines down the railway line by that stage because the Morse code system and the communications had just grown at that rate. They had actually telephone lines running on these poles back in the early day, and I'll have to find out the date for you, and I'll put it on the screen as to when it actually discontinued. But it went on for many decades. As this goes straight to Balladonia, almost in a straight line. We are going to veer off from there, but let's get going. We're running out of sunshine because it is winter, so let's head off. Might just include this. We've come about, I think, from the main highway, or the turn off that we were at, we're probably less than 10 kilometres. Probably actually about 6, to be honest. If you don't have to cross the Salt Lake, but if you wanted a place to camp, the old telegraph line track just to the 16 kilometres south of Norseman. It runs directly east. You can't go wrong. Just stick to the main track. Makes some great sunsets. Easy to get at, especially if you had like your full drive camper trailer. You could drive down here, no troubles at all on this track. And you can see you can circle around. And then that's looking north. And as I said, we're starting to run out of sunlight. And it's looking back to the west. So you would come from that direction. And yeah, good little camp spot. Nice. I don't think we need to have them full drive to cross that. It's pretty good at the moment, nothing drastic, but we'll do it anyway. We're hauling a lot of weight, so can't hurt. Got to lock the hubs at some stage, might as well do it now. As we transverse down the western side of Lake Dundas, we are actually crawling across Archean rock. There is a site on YouTube that depicts that this is Proterozoic, and that is not true. It is most definitely Archean. You will not find fossils here, but you can find gold. I will at some stage later do a video on the formation of gold in this area, as I've got enough footage to make an interesting bit of video, but that is for another day. Just now we're about to cross Lake Dundas, which is over 40 kilometres in length north to south, but its mass area rivals the state capital of Western Australia. You should never cross the Salt Lake, you will always get bogged, but fortunately the council has provided us with a bridge. It's starting to get a little bit fun. It's pretty easy though. You've got to watch your footing of where you put the wheels. Tripod's not a good one for panning. Well, we're on a budget, so. The interesting thing I found out about salt lakes by a geologist is that there's no exception to the rule. If you're lost and you don't have a compass and you find a salt lake, you've got a compass. Because you'll notice that you're looking now, this is the eastern side of the salt lake, you're looking south. You can see how the land, how it just sort of runs off and it just undulates out. Right, but on the western side, you've got cliff type formation. It'll vary in size. You can get some really decent size rocks and cliffs on the western side, and you get some just little tiny ones, you know, literally about 4 inches high, and it ranges everything, you know, from all the scales from either side of that. So that's your western side. It's got rock formation, cliff formation, and this here, what we're standing on, is the eastern side. As I see, it just runs off sort of smooth. We'll see more of this, and it makes a good compass. And then travelling east after the Salt Lake, This road just goes dead straight. So you know you're kind of on the right track. Now those two white signs say on it what you might guess they do. There's certainly not water out here. So even though this was used as the old telegraph line track from the early days, it's still used for the communications. Sorry, hiccups. It's still used for communications today. And we'll stop and I'll show you what I mean soon. Because along this track, as I was talking about before in the cab, there's you got the main optic fibre between Perth that runs to the eastern states, runs directly underneath this. And this is one of the jump stations here that boosts the signal across so that the optic fibre can travel at the speed that it does, which is now measured in terabytes now, isn't it, per second? A lot faster than the old Morse code used to be, but internet nonetheless. So yeah, you'll find a few of these scattered along the telegraph line. I must admit, the last time I was here, the cameras that you see up the top there weren't there. So obviously maybe people have tried to help themselves to a solar panel or two. Judging by the end, look at the end there, those two look different. I'd say someone's come along and knocked a couple off. They had to replace them. And so they've put cameras there now. But yeah, let's keep moving. This would have been a camp from a long time ago. You can see the remains of it. There have been tea tree, that's why they've lasted. You've got the 5 gallon tins. They were very, very common back in the old day. They used to have 2 of those in a crate, and they would reuse the crates for everything. They turned them into cupboards, into beds, or you name it. They would use those crates. They'd reuse everything, even the tins themselves. But that's how your gasoline would come. It was always in a 5 litre can. That's what they are. These here are like water condensers. Back in the day, they would get the salt water out of the salt lakes or from the ground or wherever they could, and then use those to boil the water, and steam would come out, and they would get the fresh water out of that. Along the track, we might come across a few of these, but these would have been from a camp because it would been on the old telegraph line. The people who were building the telegraph line or maintaining it, or building the road, the track that you take to maintain such a line, they would have stopped here. Well, I'd say it would have been quite a major camp to take the time to erect those poles. And anyway, interesting, sort of. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why this is a national park, or at least a nature reserve. When the sun sets, and it just turns them orange right on the sunset. This whole bushland, you can just see it just turns everything pink and orange. And the sky, as this goes purple in the background, it looks brilliant. You could stick a camera pointed anywhere and it's going to look good. It's unusual at this point, but I haven't seen any wildlife. I haven't seen any kangaroos, emus crossing over, even in the distance. I think my eyes aren't that good as what they used to be, but normally by now you've seen something run over the road. Plenty of their guna, which is their feces, to indicate that they are about. A lot of fresh stuff. So obviously they can hear me before I get to them and they're already out of there. But as you can see, the old telegraph line just to the south of Norseman, going dead east. It's dead straight. It's an easy going track. So any four-wheel drive, not a problem. I think I've still got it up from in four-wheel drive from before, but I could take it out. I could be driving in two-wheel drive. You don't need it as long as it's dry. But compared to the rest of this journey, this is actually red carpet. This is a very, very easy track. We've got a lot worse ones to come yet. Similar landscape to Dundas rocks further back. You can see what I mean. This is kind of like a salt lake. It's not really like a salt pan that you normally get. It's similar to, because you've got this salt brush that so anything that grows there. And that's the western side of it. So you've got like you can see the rocks formation in the distance there. And as it goes to the eastern side of the lake, you'll just see it'll just drift off like this, just all smooth, no rocks. It's always on the western side you get that cliff kind of formation. From the geologist John Morton, he didn't actually have an answer as to why. If anyone wants to comment online, do you reckon the reason as to why it's always like that with salt lakes in Western Australia? You've got rock cliff formation on the west, and it just drifts off to the east. I'll just take a moment to update the track. Come about 60-70 kilometres into our journey, and as you see that the track takes our first deviation from a straight line. I think it's just going around a salt lake by the look of it, but the actual optic fibre still runs underneath the track and runs underneath here. The interesting part actually is that if you're actually watching this, and if I do actually upload this bit, it's possible that what you're viewing got sent through that optic fibre under the ground there. Unless it went via the Singapore cable, the undersea cable, it's possible that it got transmitted onto YouTube through the cable that's underneath the ground in a dead straight line. I'd say that the cable is, I don't know if you can see the remains of it there, but you can see there's a bit of a bulge there. That's not natural, that's been dug up. You can actually see a gap through there, so they would have ploughed it through. That was back in 1996. September 1996 they dropped the optic fibre cable in. I know that to be true because I saw it happen when I was at the roadhouse. I watched it. This is the second, from the main highway, this is the second booster station. That's where we've just come from. It's looking to the west. And this here is your Fraser Range Road. Heading off to the south. This road will take you, it's not signposted, that's why I sort of thought I'd mention it. I'll put the GPS coordinates on the screen if you like. But it is a great track. It is an excellent one. It's good like this. It's good if you're not really all that confident with full driving and you haven't got all the recovery equipment and things like that. You don't need it. You can go as a group. It's a great track. It'll take you down almost. It'll come out just around between Salmon Gums and I think Grass Patch. The track forms out that you come out all the wheat field, the wheat area around that way, or around about Mount Ridley. So you can, if you're heading towards Esperance, if you're in Esperance, you could loop around, stay one night. There's been great camping spots along that track. You can find a spot anywhere, just off to the side of the track. Some nice salt lakes. It's a good drive. I've taken it before, like obviously as you can tell. It was a good adventure, but it was easy going. Didn't get a puncture or anything like that. But a great track to take if you just want to go on a bit of a forward drive adventure with your mates. With the family, even if you're on your own and you're not that confident, like it said, don't worry, but that track's a good one. You know, as long as you don't go when it's wet and when it's pouring rain, but in the dry weather, yeah, that's your main old telegraph line track, Fraser Range turn off. I'll just try and give you a bit more of an idea. That's what it looks like. So we've just come from that way, and it kind of goes back on an angle. You can't miss it. It actually shoots through then to the north to actually Fraser Range itself. That'll take you. That'll eventually get you back to the air highway, and it basically just cuts through this straight across the top. Like I said, there's no signposts anywhere to say that this is it, but this is it. But we are going that way, and we better get going. So I've only got a couple of hours of sunlight left, and I want to try and get set up in the sun if we can. Just not going straight. This is a great spot to camp. I'm thinking that maybe this is where I should camp. I managed to get sloppy in here in the rain. I wouldn't stay here if it was raining heavy. Well, there's other people who camp here. There's an alcove. There's like a rock over. Exactly. I think like I said, 96 kilometres from Lonesome along the track. I've camped here. Bad spot. I could consider staying here tonight myself. I don't think I'm going to make it. The amount of sunlight I've got left is exactly 3 o'clock. Couldn't hurt. It's dead still. Just so calm. If you had a large group, this would be a good spot to camp because you can get, there's plenty of nice places in here. But you can get a large group of people who can spread out. You can swing a caravan around there if you had to. And, for sanitary reasons, if you need to, that is easy ground to dig. You can see that really red dirt. You can dig that really easily. It looks like we've got some nice places to go for a walk. It's a sweet little spot, this. I don't know if the camera picks up the purple and the blues on the horizon. But it is dead still. I'm out in the wide open and you could light a match right here and not put your hand around it and you'll light it. It is so still. Absolutely love it. For the first night, this is the first night camping out on this journey. I couldn't ask for more. If every night was like this, it's going to be a fantastic journey. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm decked out and prepared for rain. I'm going to base this bit of the video, if you don't mind, just to people who may, consider travelling around Australia and you want to visit places and you may actually come by this way. This is a great little campsite, but no good in the wet, dry weather, absolutely fantastic. There's a beautiful little grotto here, and especially if you've got like an off-road vehicle, one of those off-road caravans, your pop-out tent units and that sort of thing. This is a great spot here. You've got little pockets in there. If you had a group of yous, you could all space out nicely. There's shaded areas. It's just beautiful. Last night, this is when you studied the one night, there was no insects at all. There was like a couple of moths flying around and that was it. There's no ants around here. There was nothing. I've had no flies this morning, yesterday afternoon, no mosquitoes at all. There was a little small group of midges that hung around a bit, so I put a citronella burner on and they disappeared and that was it. I couldn't believe it. Usually when you go camping in Australia, insects and stuff are always a big factor of it. But in this spot, I swear there was nothing, and it was a clear sky. It was beautiful, beautiful night. Probably one of the best nights camping. It's a good way to open up the trip. But it's gone overcast overnight, which is a good tip if you do go camping. Before you go to bed, put everything away. I've been caught like that before, where you just leave stuff around your campsite, you fall asleep, you go to the tent and go to bed, and about 3 o'clock in the morning, clouds come over and it starts raining by 4 in the morning, and then you get up and everything's soaked, and that's not cool. So that there is where they used to transverse the sheep through, and then through a Fraser Range, and then across to Norseman. As you can tell, there's a telegraph line track. Obviously, the straight line came later.
As long as people have been there before us, after a bushfire you get all the dead trees that fall across the tracks. Sometimes you can drive over them, but sometimes you've got to get out and get the chainsaw out and shift them. But if someone's already been this way, then they might have already cleared it for us. The classic example of exactly what I'm talking about. Should have done it before. Take your side vision mirrors off. I just copped a big bash through the side there. I was just saying, it just came up and it's just hooked that in, it just lands me right through the window. Got me a beauty. What an idiot. As I said, I was watching that side there, but you can't watch both. So I'm going to take these off now. An obstacle. Nothing that drastic, but it was easy if there's just one big log to go over. I really can't be bothered dragging out the chainsaw just now for that, but it looks like someone has been here in the past and they've just simply pushed through just here. But before I just go and copy off and do the same, I tend to just check the ground through, because you get mallee roots around here and they go straight through your tyre. So just check your terrain first. If you can't see it, look before you leap, as they say. So yeah, he's just come through there, he's pushed his way around. He's obviously gone through there, yep. And then entered back through there. I'll watch that stake there. Just in mentioning, whoever did come through here and went around, came from the south, and then and came north through here. They didn't come from the direction that we have come and pushed their way through that way. They haven't gone like through there and back again. You can tell by the way all these branches have fallen over. If you'll notice, they've all been pushed that way. See that? They've been flattened in that direction, so they've come from the south and gone that way. So therefore it may indicate that we can get through. If they've come up from that way, then it might be possible that the track goes all the way through and is not completely blocked. Good news. It's sad so much we've got bushfire where you can't see very far, all the new growth has come through. Obviously this bushfire was a lot older than the one further back on the track that we saw, because these trees are about good 3-4 times the height. Yeah, you will come across things like this. Do they go around? I think we'll just push on through, eh? Stuff it. That's not cool. I hope we haven't ripped through the canvas. Along the way, you're going to come across these, it's marked on topographic maps as rocky granite outcrops, and there's a little saying numerous, and they'll be scattered from here to there, and you'll come across them. Like some of them will have water holes in them, and if they do, they usually have a name. Yeah, if the rock doesn't have a name, no water hole. It's usually the old school indication of it. But when you go by, if you do come across these things, make note of them. Like just where they are in your mind, just take mental note of it, because if you're ever out here in the summertime and if a bushfire was to sweep through, you need to head for something like this. You need to like drop everything, jump in the car. Like the track, you've only usually got two directions. You're either going that way or that way, and that's it. So depending on which way that the fire would be sweeping through, if you need to get out of there, if you can remember where these are, and whatever the closest one is, make note of it, because that's where you get your vehicle and you park it right up in the centre. Obviously you're far away from the bush. Make sure you've got blankets and water, and soak the blankets with water. Stay with the vehicle, stay in the vehicle, and try and get to the highest centre point furthest away from all the bushland around you. And if it does have a rock pool, I park my car in the rock pool, you know, whatever it takes, because if you know that you're not going to be able to beat the fire to get out of there, a place like this is what you want. And just a little further along the track to the south there, this is the rock this is how we know that we're on the stock route. This is why the track follows this way, as it keeps coming across there. Now this here is no accident, how it's in a nice neat little curve like that. This would have been done by the early settlers that took the sheep through here. They would have gathered up all the loose rocks that you see around the place. That's probably why there's not that many actually scattered. It's quite clear and clean, because they've gathered them up and they've piled it into here, to this corner. They actually put dirt on this one and banked it up to create a dam to get more catchment out of this area here, because you can see as it notches through on the other side where it leaches out. If it wasn't for that dam, that would have barely any water in it at all, if any. But thanks to that dam, it's increased the area quite greatly. So you can imagine that at full height, you get a fair bit of water in there. Feed a few sheep. I don't know if you can see them, but we got emu tracks, and they're pretty fresh. And they used to stuck with the trackers. Last time this happened to me, he came around the corner and there he was, his whole family of them standing in the middle of the track. That's, if you can see it, that's emu. I love ambush rock. It's such a majestic rock. Do you like my camo top? Brand new. I bought it. Well, I bought it like 10 years ago, because I thought, well, oh look, camo top. I never worn it before, but and it was the first one I just pulled out of the bag. It was like a tissue box. I was like, that'll do. This rock officially does not have a name, so unofficially I'm calling it ambush rock. But why? Well, when we get to the top, I'll reveal that later. But it's such a tranquil little place. It's like it's got a little garden pathway, just naturally made. See us to the top. This place is amazing. I absolutely love it. Beautiful campsite just right next door. Easy climbing. Wonderful example of the soil change and the sudden vegetation change that you have around here. You notice it driving along when you just suddenly pass from one bit of bush to another. You can see it here. See, it just changes from a light green bushland from that soil, and then into a sudden dark green. That's a totally different vegetation. That's from just change of soil type. And so from Google Earth you look at it and it just leaves like on a massive scale bizarre patterns in the ground, all these, having the different soil types. If we're lucky, that sun will just clip underneath the cloud. It might just light it up for us. I think I've just got to get the still camera out. This is a beautiful day. Ambush rock, I'll talk about these climbing rocks here tomorrow. Hopefully the weather will be good, but we may not be so lucky with such a beautiful sunset. Usually life bites you in the butt and says, nah, it can't be all roses. There you go. Everyone, don't knock your TV set or the camera will fall over. It's on a monopod. With the cloud cover tonight, mate, and it's a bit of a breeze, it shouldn't be as cold as it was last night. Not that you can feel it through the screen, but it was knippy. The colour that sun's just made it. I love it when it does that. You rarely get this when you got that. It's just halfway through there. Probably got about 5 minutes, I'd say, at the most of this. And let's get out the torch. What a great place to come. This is what I call ambush rock. I'll talk about this tomorrow as to the reason why. But it's a great place. I think if you had a group of rock climbers, like amateurs that just sort of want to get out there and do something without it being too lethal, you've got a variety of everything here. You've got fairly easy peasy stuff to some medium stuff, to some just relatively difficult, but not too badly. I know you don't really need equipment, but there is a fascia down here that you could get abseiling equipment and do a bit of abseiling down there. It's about a 25-metre drop, and it's a great place to camp. The camping grounds are over there. You could get several vehicles and trailers in that area. Have a little spot to park in, and it's like, seriously, how far is that? 50 metres away from the rock. But, yeah, ambush rock. Highly recommend the place if you're a bunch of rock climbers and you want a place to get the group out, get them out of the city and go for an adventure. You can't go wrong. There's just so many facets on this rock that are great fun for climbing and exploring. Even if you're a dad and you've got a four-wheel drive, you've got a couple of teenagers and you want to entertain them, bring them out here. Honestly, you could just hang out at the campsite and just sling a hammock and just let kids go have fun. And it's not that dangerous, as long as they use their brains. They have a great fun climbing around here without it being too dangerous at all. It's not like you're talking Mount Everest. It is simple climbing, clambering and that, as long as you're physically able. So it's not really a rock where you're sort of jumping between crevices a lot. You put your backpack on and have to carry it on your back. You need two hands. That makes it a good fun rock, and it stretches right back. I'll show you that later on. I think you could abseil a little bit. My mother knew where I was standing right now, she'd be freaking out. Doesn't matter how old you get, you're still that little baby. I don't know if you can see this, but this dude is a green spider. Look at him. I don't often see that one. For all you insect lovers out there, what species of spider is that? I absolutely adore this rock, ambush rock. Even the entryway into it is quite enchanting. There's two ways you can go. You can come through this way, down this meandering path. It was a bit denser a few hours ago. I saw someone with a pair of pruning shears take the branches out of your face. Small birds that nest in here. Won't touch them. See the small birds that made their homes. So that opening is only about 3 centimetres. I wonder if they reuse them, or whether they make a new one for every time. It's so quiet. If you really want some peace and quiet, this is the place to come, Ambush Rock. A lot of granite rocks around Western Australia are quite smooth, and you just generally walk up them, and they're just bouldered sections. But Ambush Rock, it's not like that at all. It's very different from a lot of other rocks in that sense. That it's great for the adventurers because it's not an even bit of surface, so it's a bit of a challenge. That in the distance is Mount Andrew, so where we're headed tomorrow morning, and then fingers crossed we can continue south from there along the original stock route. But if the vegetation, if the bushfire, in fact I can almost see it from here. You can actually see the change in the vegetation over there on the horizon. There's, I think you can see the burnt bushland area. If it had a bushfire through it, then it could be a problem. This rock is perfect for an abseiling or rock climbing team, especially for beginners. I mean, absolute pros just would get bored of this real quick. It's too easy. But if you had a beginner group, this is just perfect. You've got every grade you could ask for. You got your medium, you've got your trough, you've got abseiling you could do around on the cove on the other side. You've got some fairly difficult ones up there. If you had a group of yous together that were prepared, it's kind of got everything. You can spend a good couple of days here and make a great adventure. Literally choose your difficulty level. I'd call that, I've climbed it before that one, but I'm not really keen to do it today. That one's a bit of a challenge. I'm sure there's some rock climbers out there to find that no troubles at all. So it's great for a beginner group. That one I've got a medium. It's quite doable, that one. I might even try it myself. Some crevice climbing there, if you want to practice that. Here was I about to show you as to why I call this Ambush Rock. It's because inside this cave you can see through an opening that you can see from above. You can see both directions. There's only one track that runs alongside past here. So you imagine back in the old horse and cart days, with the old stand and deliver, this would be where the bandits would hide out, because you can see the cart coming from a mile away. You can hear the horses galloping, and you know, have your troop of your cowboys ready to pounce on the old coach and their passengers. But I just suddenly noticed this has happened. When I was here last about 10 years ago, that rock was up here, and it was like a cave under here with an opening. And I come up to it now and I'm thinking, this isn't what it looked like. I realised, hang on, this is all collapsed since that day. So this rock in front, as I said, was up there. And you can see the signs of it quite fresh, actually breaking just from the rock around there. But this is actually just cracked off and slid a bit, because this was up here. So that would have been an interesting to sight if he could be the fly on the wall that saw it happen. But yeah, this is why it was called ambush rock. You could still do it. I'm sure you could. As I said, you can see both directions. You can see the track in it neither way. But yeah, ambush rock, good spot. Welcome to the temporary map room. That's why I had to stay here an extra day, because we needed to sort this out. Basically, old school wise, we started there. That's where we left the tarmac. Come down there, and gone all the way across there. Gone around till we got to that intersection. If you recall, come down the track here. I think it's when I got myself punctured in the chest. Numerous rocky outcrops, and then down to where we are here. As you can see, that the ambush rock doesn't actually have a name. They just call it rocky outcrop. But that's where we are here. Now the original track that the old settlers would take was this one here. Just joining up the map just there, that is that one. It would cut through across to the station, which is over here. But I've got a feeling that we'll check it out tomorrow morning. That this track is no longer accessible. I'm pretty sure it's just blocked off from what I remember. And if not, you need some serious tyres to get through that. A mount of them, and or some solid tyres might be better, because I think it's just overgrown and no one's ever used it. But I'm hoping that, fingers crossed. There's Mount Andrew that we saw in the distance from the top of Ambush Rock. So we're just going to, hopefully, fingers crossed. I've never been past here, but if we can get through here. But I believe this whole area here has suffered fire damage, and this is what the Aboriginal fellow was warning me about. But I'm hoping that we can get down through this one, down to here, and along through. I think this would be one of the tracks that somehow they would have taken back 100 years ago, because they would have wanted past Mount Andrew, because that's guaranteed water. So on their way through from where we started, it's basically we're just trying to get a diagonal through there. We'll see how we go. Fingers crossed. If not, if that doesn't work, we're going to have no choice but to double back up through the road that we took back to the old telegraph line, and then run it across. I know that we can get across here. That's where the optic fibre is. Run it up through there to the end, and then take the track back down to the homestead instead, which is a long lap around, and is not the way that they went in the old day, which is what I'm hoping to do, is do the historical journey. But we'll give it our best crack. In summary, I'm really going to miss this campsite. We've got lots of good ones to go, I'm sure, but this one's a beauty. I've got a feeling I'm never going to see this place again, though, in my lifetime. There's too many other things to see and do. Maybe we'll come back here again one day, I don't know, but it's a great place for an rock climbing group. What a place to come. Brilliant place for it. Great campsite. No insects last night, like a couple of moths flying around, that's it. No ants, there was a couple of mosquitoes, but I've seen more in the city than what there was out here. It's hardly anything, just one citronella, mosquito coil going, and I never saw a single insect. I was never bothered once. The stars are incredible, absolutely incredible. Great place to come, but we've got to move on pretty long. This is the way we've just come, and that's us, and it's heading south. But I was looking for that old original track to the east that the old route was, and I do believe that could be it there. As you can see by the trees growing up the middle, it could be just a fire break though. I'm really not sure. I'll check this GPS coordinate and see if that is the track. But if it is, it looks borderline doable. It's a bit tight, but we've got no side vision mirrors now. Plates are off. We're ready to push through. You can see this is quite an easy going track compared to that one, with the trees start to grow up the middle and all sorts. And it does cut across a 90-degree that way, but that way is much more overgrown. There's no signs of any tyre tracks for quite a long period of time. The trouble is, if you try and take that route, the deeper you get into it, you get stuck. I think we'll go to Mount Andrew, which is that way, and then we'll see where we're at. But we'll make note of this turn off right here. Let's keep going. Look how gorgeous is this bit of track. I can handle having this in my driveway to my house. First arrival at Mount Andrew. I've just pulled up because we've got a three-way junction here. We've got a track that way, a track through there which looks like the original track through the rocks, through that way, and then it looks like people have made an alternative that way which looks more major. But, let's go investigate. Let's take this one first, and because we've got a trailer and I don't really want to reverse, I might just walk it. Here at Mount Andrew, I just got out of the car. I was just about to go for a walk around, and this is exactly the sort of ornithology action I was looking for. We've got a big wedge-tailed eagle, and maybe he's living here. Obviously we would live close by, but he's a big beauty. He's flying around. I didn't catch him when he was flying, but he's just gone and he's gone and perched himself. He could buy himself something. I'll see if I can get some shots of him flying around, but look at that. Yeah, these arms. His wings at full stretch. Clearly I haven't had my Wheaties this morning, which is true, I haven't. But, he's a big one. You should have seen his wingspan. He's fantastic. But he's checking me out. Obviously he's seen me pull up. He's going, oh, what's going on here? Here we go. Maybe he's got a nest here somewhere. If that's the case, he's probably not going to be happy with me going up there. But we'll go find out. I've never known an eagle just to go and attack a person, but they're very clever when it comes to anything really. They're very smart birds. I find that they know, if they've ever been shot at before, they know what the lens of a rifle looks like. It's hard to get a photograph of them because you pull your camera out and it sees that shiny lens. He's thinking gun and he takes off. As beautiful as this landscape is, it does munch on vehicles. Just looking for the track I'm to take next. Found another victim. So from Mount Andrew back to, that's Ambush Rock in the distance. It's looking back north. So it's like about a 30-minute easy drive from each other. So you could camp it. That's our road. And that could actually be what you call easy going. There's nothing leaking. You should always test your car every day. But anyway, I was going to put a plate between the front grille and the radiator Because if a stick comes up and gets stabbed and it shoves itself through the radiator between the two, you can imagine where I'm going with this. On guard. I'm going to check the weather in a couple of minutes to find out what it is that I'm going to do, because it is look likely that it is going to rain. This is not a good spot to get caught in, being this top of a mountain, but yeah, we're just going to get washed out. We're better off back where we were if we can't proceed. So we'll find out what the weather is and work out from there what we're going to do. But this is a great rock and I would like to stay the night. But it's great if you want to come, if you do come to Mount Andrew and you live in Australia or you're travelling around, you want to do it. If you've got like one of those vehicles where you've got a pop-out trailer, where you've got to pop out off the top of the vehicle, that sort of setup, then this is a great spot because you could just about camp anywhere you want. The rain factor is not such a big deal for you. In fact, you know, it could be advantageous. And there's plenty of spots to then camp at. But if you're then subject to tent, not a good place. It's in the dry, yes, not a problem, but you don't have a lot of depth for your tent pegs unless you want to start camping on the main track. But yeah, the other type of setup is better. We don't have that. We've got tents. We're going to find out what the weather is. I made a marker from that bit of four-wheel drive mud flat. We don't want to turn down there. We want to go down the next one. Looks like a track, doesn't it? I'm going to take the time to snap that off. It won't take 2 seconds. Oh wow, I'm glad I had the camera rolling for that one. I didn't double back for that, I came across it. I remember this on the satellite pictures actually. Yes, we are definitely on the right track. Clapper's not happy because I dumped him in the salt, but he doesn't like salt. He loves chalk. Anyway, I thought I'd just stop and have this is a great example of what I mean by a salt lake being a compass. Even though you might remember the other one we saw had a very rocky western side. This one, like I said, there's no rocks. There's you know, it's still sand. There's no rocks at all, pretty much. But it still has that cliff effect on the western side, and off here, as you can see off to the east, it just drifts off smooth. And this is a classic example of it. And you can even see that to the south there, it then just tapers down. So it's like a perfect compass. Because there you know is your west, you know that's east, you know that's north, and it's almost near spot on. And if anybody knows why Salt Lake, there is no exception. There's no Salt Lake that does this like the opposite way around. You'll have that cliff face over this side. It doesn't happen. So anyone knows why, let us know. That shows where we've just come from, obviously, and just how clear that is thanks to the clearing of that vehicle. But here's the T-junction to the west. I was just looking north then, now you're looking west. That's the track. You can barely see how long ago it was since someone drove there. But, that is what this road that we are on would have looked like if this front end loader had not come through and made it look like that. What we would have been faced that whole way along, which is what I was expecting. I don't know if you could see it, but yeah, the track's there. You can make it out, but you can see that you would have been getting out of the vehicle a lot greater chances of a puncture, because if there's something sharp underneath that foliage, you don't see it until it's too late. Whereas back on the clear track, you can clearly see any Sharp Meli Spikes or anything similar. But I thought the whole track was going to be at least like that, or probably actually worse. I imagined it actually higher than that, and you'd be barely making out the track, and you'd be getting out of the car every 2 minutes to go and get the chainsaw out and cut the fallen trees across the track. But we have gotten lucky. We have gotten a clear track I imagine it's probably council or local government. I don't imagine it's a private person would have got their front end loader and done it, but we are lucky. This was the worst part of it I imagined this trip would be, so it means we're going to get to see a lot more. Fantastic. Let's move on. This is just so boring. This fire that's gone through has just kilometres. I was really hoping it would just sort of end somewhere and then just go back to normal bush, just a patch of it. But I've travelled for kilometres, absolutely miles, and it's just like this bush. It must have been a hell of a bushfire at the time. I'm not sure exactly when it happened. Obviously, was not paying attention to the news. You can see by the level of the vegetation how long the small stuff here, how long ago it was. But geez, it must have ripped through hard when it was big. It was big. In fact, I think I remember it actually, because I remember it was heading towards salmon gums or something, and it was threatening possibly threatening the farms. Probably caused by a lightning strike or something. Most likely. But it's just so dull. I'm just going to try and really hike it through here quick. I am not going back to Mount Andrew. We've just come too far now. I was going to I thought I'd find a good little campsite further down and then double back later the next day. Go back and film some more, but unfortunately the footage that I have, that's it. You're going to have to live with that one. Because we've got too much more to see. There's going to be plenty of that. I think you get the idea. Great place to go. Not a good place to tent up. I would tent up at Ambush Rock and then just drive down, like, you know, to 20-30 minutes down the track. Go and visit Mount Andrew as well and do the two together if you were to visit that. But we've got to press on. But we are officially on the one of the tracks. There is two. This is one of the tracks that the old stock route used to go through to the homesteads that we will be visiting hopefully soon. And I know that area should be good camping as long as that hasn't been burnt as well. But in the meantime, it's just so dull. These salt lakes can also act as a fire break. We finally came to this salt lake, and it looks like, so we got into the bushfire here, but looking like off in the distance, on the other side, I think we've got good vegetation. That might be the end of the boring patch. Over there we might find an interesting camping spot, but we've got to find one soon. I've got less than about an hour before the deadline of like running out of sunlight. Oh, there's water over there. Unless I'm seeing things.
So you have to temper that a little bit, especially at this time of the year when we are waiting for those opening rains.
Is that not absolutely beautiful? These clouds should keep the warmth in tonight. Shouldn't be so bad. Cow. If you're a footprint expert, comment in. It's sort of different from beach sand. It feels like your foot sinks down about a centimetre and it feels like you're on the moon. And like these bits under the salt brush. It just goes poof. These colours are incredible. So I feel like I should say something just to let you know that there is audio. That's how quiet it is. That it's just so quiet. It's beautiful. You'll be stuck somewhere for the night, have to pass through. Can't complain. Australia does really put out some interesting beauty. Almost looks like an ice rink where you get out on your ice skates and go and skate on it. But, you try to drive on it, before you get stuck, you'll just end up doing 360s. You just completely lose control. And you'd make a right mess of it too. You'd make all these lines in there that sit there for years. It looks ugly. Never drive on a salt lake. What a sunset. I wonder if the camera can pick up that colour like my eyes see it. That is incredible. Looks like there's a fire in the distance, but it's not. It's just this sun bleeding through. It is so quiet. You can hear a pin drop, even on the mud. I'm terrible at panning. I really need one of those little devices that does it for you. But, forgot one of those. Look at that sky, that's incredible. You just couldn't buy a moment like this. You couldn't arrange it. You could take, set up a tour of Australia like group and the safari trekking type thing, and then bring them out here, and you can't guarantee you're going to get this. You just, weather you can't control. Happy to share it with you. Temperature's dropping quick though, you can feel it, nice and nip in the air now. Thanks for joining us for an edition of Aaron's Adventures Campfire Cooking. We can actually have a fire now because of where we're at. We're actually at Sunset Salt Lake, and we can have a fire because we are now no longer in the Dundas Nature Reserve. We just think that's back about 10 kilometres up the track, so we're good. So we can actually have an edition of campfire cooking, complete with sparks. In this one, that's pretty complex. You get yourself a can, crack the top of course, can of soup. You can go about can of about anything you like, but soup's a good one tonight because we do have a little bit of damper left over. I'm going to dip it in that. Hot coals around there, don't put it underneath the bottom, just put it around there. Go and listen to a few songs, come back, and you'll know when it's cooking because you'll see it bubbling at the top. Dessert, very complex. Get yourself an apple, wrap it in alfoil, and then stick it back in the fire. And don't put it right in the fire, let it cook slowly. So just put it on the edge, rotate it around, put some hot coals around it, a bit similar to this, but a little bit further, and let it cook slowly. But do that first. That way, that's ready for you after you finish your dinner later on. So that you want to cook that slowly though. Don't cook it too fast; it'll burn the outside of the apple, and the inside's still hard. So just on the outside of the thing. But thanks for joining us, Clapper, and thank you for joining us at the first episode of Campfire Cooking. Glad you could join us. Welcome to the first edition of Campfire Stories. Tonight's story is about a book. It's not a story in a book. It's a story about a book. This particular book is called Elsewhere Fine. There was only 1,000 copies ever printed. And the company that printed the book was by Carl Dimer, and the company printed it have gone out of business. They're from Bunbury, Western Australia, and they no longer exist. So you can't get any more of these for a very long time. The library has at Perth, Western Australia, a copy of it, but you cannot, I think it's like a maximum 2 weeks. You can remove it, but they pretty much have high tabs on it. And of the 1,000 copies, I think the one that the library has is number 600 or something, but I got copy number 154 out of the 1,000 copies written. This particular book, the reason why we're talking about this one tonight, 2 good reasons. It is all about Henry Dimer, or Heinrich Dimer, who came to Western Australia on a whaling ship. He actually jumped ship in Albany, and Albany as it's actually pronounced, and he hid out on an island just off the coast of Albany, and he hid there for a while until the authorities stopped looking for him and the whaling ship left. So from there he then got some work with some people, and we'll tell you the story a bit later, but the interesting part was in the end, he ended up starting up a homestead, the Nanavini homestead, which is just to the east of us, and we're actually headed that way. We're going there. So everything that this book talks about, the fella and his life, we're going to see this firsthand. There's also the other state which he mentions about is a man named John Paul Brooks. See that? Well, I'll show you that on the screen. This fella, this is where we're hoping. I might be able to make it there by tomorrow. If not, it'll be the next day to see it. It depends on the tracks. But I have been looking for a copy of this book, and that one time I did actually lose it, and the library sent me a fine of $74 for the book. Eventually I did find the book and I was able to send it back. So I went to the library and asked, if I just paid the $74 for the book, where would you guys get another copy? And basically it was a shrug of shoulders from their end. So for a book that is almost impossible to get, to nick it from the library, it was tempting for $74, but I didn't do it, obviously. I just kept borrowing it out. But I've been looking for a copy of this book elsewhere, fine, because it's all about the area that we're headed, and it would have been good to have your own copy. So for years I've been trying to track down this book. How I got a hold of this copy of this book is the interesting part of the actual story. I happened to be on working at a place, hardly working, at a place called Davyhurst, which is just a stone's throw north of Kalgoorlie. It's about 127 k's north of Kalgoorlie, so it's just up the road from Cal. Out in the thick of the scrub, nothing else out there. Davyhurst used to have a population of 20,000 at its high peak in about 1901. Was it 1910? Somewhere around there. I think it was about 1910. It was about 20,000, and then literally within 8 years after that, it just died out and all the gold went away, and now has a population of 0. Except for the people on the mine site that's nearby. But there is a small running mine just close by to the main township of Davyhurst, and there's an old fella there named Bill, and I knew of him for many months, but just because he was our closest neighbour. He was just only 15 k's around the corner up the road from one mine site to another, and we used to have like campfire chats with him all the time. And I couldn't believe, after all this time of looking for this book, one night we were at his donga, at his setup, and we're having dinner by the campfire, just sort of catching up with him. And he was telling us a story around the campfire, and he mentioned the name Dimer. And I said, hang on, whoa, say that again. He said, I'm talking about a guy named Carl Dimer. He said, oh, hang on, I've read that. He wrote a book. He said, and I said, yeah, he did. And I said, I've been trying to get a copy of that. Do you know where I could get a copy of it? He says, of course. He says, I've got one. You could have it. He says, the guy's my brother-in-law. So Carl Dimer, the author of this novel, was the guy's brother-in-law, was just 15 k's down the road, which is literally a stone's throw out in the middle of the bush out there. It's like something 15 k's down the road from here. He was there the whole time, was this guy's brother-in-law. And I said, look, can I get a copy of that book off you? I'll buy it off. He says, mate, you can have it. And he gave me this, the copy of this book, and I was absolutely rapt that I'll finally get a hold of the copy of this book elsewhere fine. We're going to mention this a few times in this journey. And it came from his brother-in-law, who was just around the corner up the road out in the middle of boonsticks and nowhere. For many months I had no idea it was him. I mean, what are the chances? I mean, it's a small world. I think it's a fascinating story, and the stories that are going to come out of this and what we're going to see is equally as fascinating, because it's all still there. It hasn't really changed from way back when they had their stations around there. Everything is exactly the same, so we're going to get to see it firsthand. So that's tonight's stories, or campfire stories, about a book and how it came about. Thanks for joining. I'm not going to do a take two, that'll do. Oh, that fire's hot. Besides, my tea's going cold. Thanks for joining. This track has been so cruisy. This is just so easy. Like, thank goodness that front end loader went through and cleaned it up a couple of years ago. Maybe after the fire, I suppose, it would have fire break reasons, say, yeah, go and clean it up. Very handy. As adventurous as it is to go climbing over logs, dodging obstacles, there comes some wear and tear on the car, money and time. It's better to just take a swing on the gas. And it means we get to see more. We are running out of time, way behind schedule. That's not working. I've got the camera on a monopod. I lifted it way in the air and tried to film it. That just didn't work. So this obviously had a bushfire as well, but a lot longer ago than further back north. So that's looking back north where we were. I'm gonna look that, check that on the compass where that mountain is versus way off in the distance. I think we probably will end up there. If you can see it. We're going to see if we can make it there. But that's a way off yet. We won't get there today. Bushfire area seems to have just suddenly ended, sort of indicating by the way it has that it started at the south end and the bushfire went north, and this is how like it used to would have looked like. I love driving through this sort of bushland. This to me, it feels like real Australian bush. Camera just copped a tree branch. Now here we have proof that I was not wrong, that it's only just recently in the last couple of years that someone's gone through with a front end loader and actually cleaned this track up, because it was blocked off before. And proof of this, we've just come across this intersection. It's been kindly signposted, which has just taken all the adventure and fun out of this whole thing completely. Not only that, look how newly this has been put in. Like, that's just a few bit of leaves over. This is recent, like in the last 24 months they've only just put this sign in place, and you can tell that they've obviously, it is a fire track. So probably because of the bushfire, they've just thought, well, let's clean things up and then sort out these tracks and then try and contain that. But this intersection through here, so that's the track I think would have gone straight through that way, and they've now added this one, and again they've signposted it to tell us where you can go, which is kind of handy for those who are a little bit nervous about coming out here. At least then you can be confident that, yep, you're on the right path. Well, let's pick one. Got 1, 2, 3, 4 choices of directions. Which way do we go? But we want Mount Wilganyaninnya. What a silly name. Why couldn't they call it Mount Bob? Therefore, we want that track. Let's go. We're just now at the 5-way intersection, as we're going to now make the turn off as to where we go. We get to choose one of these tracks. The signposts I've showed you to Mount Hay, back to Mount Andrew. This is only the last few years that they've done this, because 10 years ago when I was through here, as I said, this was near impassable. Okay, we're going to get going. Decided we're going to head off to Mount Bob. What I thought the other track was going to be like. There you go. Very recent bushfire, but only a small area though. Not a large area, it just suddenly stops. Probably just one lightning strike in the wet. Thought I'd quickly click this one. I'm right on the edge of from the good green bushland. This is where a recent fire has come through. This could slow us down if the trees are falling across the track, or it could speed things up. It doesn't make for good viewing. It's unfortunate. That's a shame, but better than being in the bushfire. Lightning strike, lightning storm or something like that. The area could look. Either go around, or this is chainsaw time. You eventually would happen. Didn't bring the chainsaw for no reason. See how we go. Get out of here. Example of how tracks can vary. I mean, that's looking west of where we've come. We're getting it pretty cruisy thanks to the fire department. In the lands conservation management, all that sort of thing, is, you know, taking the time obviously to clear this at some stage. But you can get tracks at that kind of level where it's just basically only maintained by a vehicle pushing through. And the opposite to that is where that would have cut through before the fire track is, that's an actual track. I don't know if you can pick it, there's a difference, but look carefully. That's that track that you saw behind us continuing through. This track would have been first, and this one would have just cut through later on. But so if you see a track on the map and you think, oh yeah, we'll just drive down that, you can sort of see the line through there of the left-hand tyre track and sort of the right-hand tyre track, but you could be faced with a lot of that, and there was a stage I thought we might have to deal with that, but so far we've gotten lucky and we only have that, which is great. So yeah, bear that in mind. In Western Australia it can be deceiving with what the track on the map says and what it really is. I must admit, I really am tired of seeing all constantly burnt bushland chunks as we go along. It's really depressing. This would have been a beautiful spot. What do we do? Would have been a good area to camp, I reckon. But daunting now, a bit depressing. Look at that. I'm going to have to put this camera down to deal with this one. Look at what after dealing with that. Yeah, too much of this is how you get flat tires. One thing for sure is that we are the first people, you and me, if you're watching this, we're the first to transverse down this track since the bushfire happened. There is no evidence along the way that someone else has been through here. I've had to clear this track so many times that if anyone had gone through, there'd be signs of it. What the heck was breaking? You leave a nice trail of all the... Yeah, I've had to jump out of the car, pull trees off the track. Some you can go over, some you just can't. But at least the advantage of small trees in this area is that they're not too big. You can drag them off the track. So that is one advantage, but this one I'll have to cut. So after all that nightmare of cutting through that bush, I think it's like, well, there's still patches of it. It's come green again, so it looks like the bushfire didn't make it through here. Chunks of it, but oh no, not to be starts again. I think we're at a small patch of green and a very large patch of burnt. At times I was barely getting 200 or 300 metres, but to get out of the car again. Sometimes 50 metres out of the car again. Clear the track. Some things I could just quickly move by hand, but there was a few of them there. About five trees I had to get out with the chainsaw. There was no way around it. But someone with a trail bike has been through here. I can only see one line, so it doesn't look like they've gone there and back. It looks like they've gone one way. But they've gotten through no troubles at all. They can trail bike just go around anything. But no sign of a car track, and again we've got the block road. Spoke too soon. Right, I don't know what I look like, but I've found a patch of tea tree that hasn't been burnt in the bushfire. It's only a small little patch. But at least there's no ash on the ground. You can't camp in an old bushfire area because there's just nothing but ash all over the floor, and if you did pitch your tent there, everything you own will just be covered in ash for the rest of the journey. So I was hoping to make it. This has been so slow going. We would have made it to John Paul Brooks's estate if this track had been clear. I got a feeling that old Johnny Graham, when he warned me about the bushfire that gone through there, then maybe this is the section he was talking about and not the other bit. But he would have known that no matter what track you take coming down through, they all lead to this one that ends up to the homestead. So we know that we're on the old stock route, but no one's been along this track by car since I have, except that guy on the trail bike, and he's just slipped through, obviously having fun. But interesting journey he's had though, because I'm not sure where he went, because there's only one track, so he's only gone one way, and he looks like he turned north up another track somewhere. But it hit about 3 o'clock and we're running out of sunlight, and I'm filthy, and I'm going to have to sacrifice some of my precious water to have a wash, because I'm not going to bed like this. It's going to have to be done. So I'm not probably doing much filming tonight because I've got way too much to do. Anyway, another quiet night, and at least there's no rain, and I haven't got a puncture yet, so 2 thumbs up on that, guys. There are patches of green. Excuse me, I'm eating a biscuit. Need to get my energy up to get rid of these trees. But, still burnt bush everywhere. As I said, it's kind of depressing. You don't ever want to camp in this. Like if you get stuck, you don't want to camp in a burnt bushland. Especially if there's wind, ash gets into everything. Ruin your trip. So far I've pulled this off with no flat tyres. I can't believe it. The kilometres I've done clearing this track, and I've gone around the tracks that around the fallen trees that I can move by hand what I can. Where I can't, no choice but to get out and chainsaw. But some patches you don't get more than 25 metres and you've got to deal with another tree, then 50 metres deal with another tree. You're lucky to get a 100 metre stretch, but you have to deal with another tree. In some patches you get like 3 or 4 or 5 trees just all in the 30 metre span. Had a few of them, didn't see me sweating. But we're not turning back, of course. We're so close. We've already got 6 kilometres to go. And the depression of all this burnt bush, of the 20 kilometres of it, I'm trying to find some beauty in it. I suppose the new life to come, that's it. But with the sun just shining through that open field, like you wouldn't be able to see that long distance all through there without that fire taking place. So there's something. With the sun shining through like that on the ground below it, the shadowing, it looked kind of cool. Yeah, the leaves gave a more bronzy kind of look to it. It's a different sort of colour than normally what you see. Usually the bronze looks good when it's blended with green. But a year from now, I'd love to come back here a full year from now and see what it looks like. Now knowing that we can physically get through the track. I wouldn't get out of the car with a chainsaw so much. Whoever drives this track after me is going to be certainly very thankful. I'll never have to get out of the car. Burnt bushland, we are finally here. We've made it, Parmango Road. We're out of that burnt bushland, and on the other side of the main road, which I knew was a big cleared section, is also burnt. I knew this was a pretty main road. I've taken this quite a few times. Parmango Road, if you're travelling around Australia and you want to skip Norseman, if you want to go like across the Nullarbor from the east to the west and you want to go to Esperance, it's not a bad road. Especially if it's dry, if you've even got a caravan, as long as it's got like off-road type wheels, you can do it. It's air dusty, of course. You get a few small, shallow pothole type things that are nothing drastic, but it is maintained. So it's actually a good cut through if you wanted to do it. It's then a more interesting drive. Well, at least it used to be. Now in 2019, not so cool. But you know, give it a couple of years, it'll come back. In following. That's looking west. We've just come through the track. That's the old stock route through there, just behind my vehicle. That's where we just came out. Obviously, this is the new fire break. Obviously, since this fire's happened, I'd say the Shire's decided, well, we need a fire break, and jiggers, did they make a serious one? That's wide enough to land a jumbo jet on. You could probably land 2 jumbo jets side by side actually on that gap. This wasn't here last time. I came by this way, but I knew the road was, and I was hoping that that would be a fire break and save the other side. But hence the need for a wake-up call to that. But the important point is here, we're on a historical journey, so let's forget about that. We're talking about, this is the old original stock route, and of course it was there first. That track was there first. This has been introduced many years later. So this track used to come through here, and pretty much, I was wondering where it was, is right under our feet. It doesn't really look like a track, and I thought, hang on, where is it? And I thought, that looks like it through there. So I'm thinking, do we want to deal with more fallen trees? Because we can go around and just take the highway for a bit, which is what I'm thinking we might do. I might take a drive north, and just because we can skip up there pretty quick and just find out just how far this bushfire goes and make a decision on what we might see next. Because filming burnt bushland is not cool. We're at the wide junction of Parmango Road that you see that heading north as we were, and you can see there's the beginning of the bushfire break to this side of it at the wide junction. That one, as you can see what the bushfire's done, it's even taken down the sign, and what that means is melted, probably melted through the bolts or something, or unless it was knocked over. We're probably going to double back and take that road to the left, even though we just came from the right. That was the gap between I didn't really want to take. It's the road between there that goes through to that. The old stock route runs across between these two roads. There's no point in doing it. There's only about 3 or 4 or 5 kilometres between the two roads, and it'll be all blocked with fallen over dead trees as well, like before. So we're going to like cheat a bit. We're going to come up down here and loop back around just because of the bushfire only. If it was all green, I would have just taken the original stock route. Clearly when they say water, obviously there's a rock here that's got a groove in it, and just when it rains it comes around and drops it into this pool over here. And the sign wasn't joking when it said sometimes. Second day of winter, yeah, don't rely on it. And this particular spot would obviously be a GPS point of reference, but this is Pioneer Rock. And the reason why I stopped in here is because I am looking for the track to Mount Mount Bob. And it's a pretty boring rock, really. It must have a water hole. It does have a water hole, but it's dry at the moment. But normally I imagine all of this white section here, that would normally be full of water in a high rain. So you could feed quite a few sheep with that. So it would get a name, but unfortunately there's no water now, and I can't find this track. It has, since the bushfire, it has disappeared. It should be, in theory, just over there, but it appears to be gone. Finally, we're back on the original old stock route from John Paul Brooks's live stock route back to Norseman. Is that direction. There was if you recall, we came out the other side that was all burnt bushland, but fortunately the fire has not affected this area. It must have started at the east side and actually gone and actually then headed west, where it was far more intense on the western side, but it was obviously less intense on this side, so it started here. But anyway, the point is, after cheating a bit, I'm coming from the north, just up that main road, which is we just took, was a pretty easy going run, a little bit rough. But speaking of rough, it does get worse if we continue. Like, that's the old stock road. If you took this road south, will take you to Mount Ragged, and I've done that trek before. And when it says rough, it's not joking. It's like, that's where the times when I say you don't bother bringing eggs. Make sure everything's tied down, and you know, like, everything that's in your car is just going to get shaken about like crazy. This is the original road. Of course, the one that we're standing on didn't exist, and it of course cut through to where we're about to go is to John Paul Brooks's estate. The track to John Paul Brooks's place is beautiful. Looks like by the track it's been visited a lot, because I think because of its historical significance.
Thank you.